penthouse was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence. The heavy kind that pressed against the walls, reminding Jonathan Reed of everything missing in his life. The city skyline stretched endlessly beyond the glass windows, glittering with life, laughter, and movement. Yet inside, everything felt frozen. Jonathan stood by the window, hands in his pockets, staring down at the world he owned, but never truly lived in. At 42, Jonathan Reed was one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. His tech empire spanned continents. His name appeared in magazines, business journals, and headlines. People called him brilliant, ruthless, unstoppable. But no one ever called him happy. He hadn't felt joy in years. Not real joy. The kind that warmed your chest or made time disappear. After his wife died 8 years earlier, something inside him shut down completely. The grief never softened. It hardened. Love became a liability. Hope became dangerous. And joy felt like a betrayal. So Jonathan buried himself in work, morning meetings, night flights, endless deals. When people smiled around him, he nodded politely. When they laughed, he felt nothing. His world became numbers, contracts, silence. That night was no different, until the knock came. Jonathan frowned. No one ever came to his penthouse unannounced. His assistant always scheduled everything. His security team handled all interruptions. A knock at this hour, past 8, was unusual. He ignored it. The knock came again, sharper this time. Annoyed, Jonathan walked toward the door and opened it halfway. Standing in the hallway was a woman holding a little girl. The woman looked exhausted. Not the bad day kind of tired. The deep, bone-level exhaustion of someone who had been surviving for far too long. Her coat was thin, her hair tied back hurriedly, dark circles under her eyes. The little girl clutched a stuffed rabbit missing one ear. Jonathan's instinct was irritation. "Yes," he said coldly. "I'm so sorry," the woman said quickly, her voice trembling. "I wouldn't disturb you, but we're lost. My phone died and Jonathan was already reaching for the door. "There's a concierge downstairs," he interrupted. "I know," she said, tears threatening. "But my daughter, she's sick. She hasn't eaten all day. I just needed somewhere warm for a minute." The little girl looked up at him then. Big brown eyes, pale cheeks, lips trembling. "Please," the girl whispered. "My tummy hurts." Jonathan froze, something twisted painfully in his chest. An emotion he hadn't felt in years. He saw his daughter, not this child, but the memory of the daughter he and his wife had lost before she ever took her first breath. The grief he'd buried surged forward, raw and unexpected. He swallowed hard. "5 minutes," he said stiffly, opening the door wider. "That's all." The woman let out a breath like she'd been holding it forever. "Thank you," she whispered. Inside the penthouse, the warmth wrapped around them immediately. The little girl stared in awe at the towering windows and glittering lights. "Mama, it's like a castle." The woman smiled faintly, despite her exhaustion. "Mind your manners, sweetheart." Jonathan gestured awkwardly toward the couch. "Sit." They did. He walked to the kitchen, unsure why his feet were moving at all. He opened the fridge, staring at gourmet meals untouched, wine unopened, everything pristine and unused. He grabbed a banana, a yogurt, and a bottle of water. When he handed them to the child, her face lit up. "Thank you, mister," she said brightly. Jonathan nodded, unable to speak. The woman watched him carefully. "I'm Elena," she said softly. "And this is Lily." Jonathan hesitated. "Jonathan," Lily smiled, yogurt already smeared on her lip. "That's a nice name." Something cracked. Jonathan turned away quickly, pretending to check his phone. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 20. Jonathan didn't ask them to leave. Elena told him pieces of her story. Not out of pity, but because Lily asked questions. They had moved to the city recently. Elena worked 2 jobs. Lily had asthma. Tonight, Elena had missed the last bus home. The cold had made Lily's breathing worse. I didn't mean to trouble you, Elena said quietly. You've already done more than enough. Jonathan watched Lily curl up on the couch, already dozing off, rabbit tucked under her chin. Something inside him shifted, a warmth he didn't recognize spread through his chest. You can stay until she rests, he said slowly. It's safer. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Jonathan nodded once. He told himself it was just kindness. He didn't know yet that this moment, this accidental meeting, would shatter everything he believed about joy, loneliness, and the life he had resigned himself. Jonathan woke up to laughter, not the sharp ring of a phone, not the buzz of an alarm. Laughter. It pulled him out of sleep so suddenly that for a moment he didn't know where he was. Sunlight spilled across the bedroom floor, soft and warm, unfamiliar in a room usually shaded by blackout curtains. Then he heard it again, a child's laugh. Jonathan sat upright, heart racing. The events of the previous night rushed back to him. The knock, the woman, the little girl with the one-eared rabbit. They were still here. He stood slowly and walked toward the living room, half expecting them to be gone, like a dream dissolving in daylight. They weren't. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, lining up Jonathan's expensive decorative stones as if they were toys. Elena sat nearby, watching her with a mixture of embarrassment and relief. I'm so sorry, Elena said quickly when she saw him. She woke up early and I tried to keep her quiet. It's fine, Jonathan interrupted. The word surprised him. Lily looked up. Good morning, Jonathan. No one ever said his name like that. Bright, unguarded, as if it meant something good. Good morning, he replied awkwardly. Lily picked up one of the stones. These are shiny. Do they do anything? Jonathan almost smiled. They're just stones, he said. She frowned thoughtfully. That's silly. Stones should be outside. Elena laughed softly. Jonathan noticed the sound lingered in the room, warming it. He hadn't laughed in years. Over breakfast, real breakfast, not the protein bars he usually grabbed between meetings. Jonathan learned more. Elena was a former elementary school teacher. She'd left her job after Lily was born premature and spent months in the hospital. Medical bills had eaten away at everything she had. When Lily's father walked out, Elena had packed up what little remained and moved to the city for work. I didn't come here looking for help, Elena said quietly, stirring her coffee. Just a chance. Jonathan nodded. He understood that more than he expected. Lily chattered endlessly, asking Jonathan questions about everything. Why his ceiling was so high, why he didn't have pictures on the walls, why he lived alone. Do you get lonely? She asked suddenly, spoon frozen midair. Elena gasped. Lily, it's okay, Jonathan said gently. The question hit harder than any business deal ever had. Yes, he answered honestly. I do. Lily studied him carefully, then smiled. That's okay. You're not lonely right now. Something inside Jonathan's chest cracked open. He was supposed to have meetings, calls, a schedule packed tight enough to keep emotions at bay. He canceled everything. He told himself it was because Lily was still recovering, because Elena needed rest. But the truth was simpler. For the first time in years, he didn't want to be alone. They spent the morning together. Lily explored the penthouse like it was a playground. Elena cleaned instinctively, though Jonathan told her not to. They talked about books, teaching, childhood dreams. Jonathan found himself opening up without realizing it, about his wife, about the baby they lost, about the silence that followed. Elena listened without interrupting, without pity. I'm sorry, she said softly when he finished. Jonathan nodded. I stopped believing joy was possible after that. Elena looked at Lily, who was humming happily on the floor. Joy doesn't disappear, she said. It just waits for you to notice it again. Jonathan felt tears sting his eyes. Later that afternoon, Jonathan arranged a car to take Elena and Lily home. I can't let you walk back in the cold, he said firmly. Elena hesitated. You've already done too much. No, Jonathan replied. I haven't done enough. At the door, Lily hugged him without warning. Her arms were small but fierce. "Thank you for letting us stay," she said. "You're very nice." Jonathan swallowed hard. "You're welcome, Lily." As they left, the penthouse felt different, no longer empty, but echoing with something new, hope. Jonathan stood the window again, watching the car disappear into traffic. He told himself it was a one-time kindness, but deep down he already knew. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The boardroom went quiet the moment Jonathan Reed stopped speaking. A long glass table stretched across the room, filled with executives who were used to Jonathan's precision, his icy focus, his unwavering control. Today, however, something was different. "You're postponing the merger?" one board member asked carefully. "Yes," Jonathan replied calmly. The room erupted. "That deal has been in motion for months. We'll lose leverage. This isn't like you." Jonathan folded his hands on the table. "I know exactly what it is. And it's necessary." No one dared to push further, but they all noticed it. Jonathan Reed was changing, and change made people nervous. Later that afternoon, Jonathan sat in his office staring at his phone. He hadn't planned on keeping in touch with Elena. It had simply happened. A text from her sat unread. "Thank you again for yesterday. Lily keeps asking when she'll see you." Jonathan typed, erased, typed again. "Anytime." He paused, then added, "How is she today?" The reply came quickly. "Better. But I'm worried." Jonathan's chest tightened. "About what?" "Several minutes passed. I just got a call from the clinic. Her medication isn't covered anymore." "I don't know how I'll manage." Jonathan didn't hesitate. "Send me the details." "John." "Ethan, I can't." "Please," he replied. "Let me help." After a long pause, she agreed. Jonathan closed his eyes, anger simmering beneath the surface, not at Elena, but at a system that left mothers begging and children suffering. That evening, Jonathan visited them, not as a billionaire CEO, but as a man carrying groceries and a bag of Lily's favorite apples. Their apartment was small, cramped, warm in a way his penthouse never was. Lily squealed when she saw him. "You came." Jonathan smiled, an actual smile. "I said I would." Elena looked uneasy. "Jonathan, you don't have to do this." "I want to," he said simply. They ate dinner together, sitting on mismatched chairs, laughing when Lily spilled juice on the table. Jonathan found himself telling stories, real ones, not the polished version the media knew. When Lily coughed suddenly, Jonathan's smile faded. Elena's face tightened. "It's starting again." Jonathan knelt in front of Lily. "Does it hurt?" She nodded. "A little." That was all it took. Jonathan stood. "I'll take care of this," he said quietly. The next day, the entire town noticed. A Children's Health Foundation announced a new emergency fund. Clinics suddenly expanded services. Medications were covered, no questions asked. People whispered, who was behind it? They found out soon enough. Jonathan Reed made no announcement, gave no interview, but someone leaked it. The town was shocked. The billionaire who never smiled, the one who never donated publicly, he did all this for one child? Jonathan didn't care. He was busy sitting on the floor, letting Lily braid his hair. Elena confronted him that night. "This isn't fair," she said, tears streaming. "You can't keep saving us." Jonathan looked at her gently. "I'm not saving you. I'm choosing you." Her breath caught. "I've spent years thinking my life was over," Jonathan continued. "And then you walked into my door. You didn't ask for money. You didn't ask for favors. You just needed warmth." He paused. "And you gave me something back I didn't know I'd lost." Elena's voice trembled. "Jonathan." Before she could finish, Lily burst in. "Mommy," she said sleepily, "can Jonathan stay forever?" Jonathan laughed softly. Elena wiped her tears, smiling through them. "We'll see, sweetheart." But Jonathan already knew the answer. Outside, the city buzzed with rumors and disbelief. Inside a small apartment, A lonely CEO found himself surrounded by something more valuable than wealth: family. The first warning came quietly. Jonathan noticed it in the way his assistant avoided his eyes, in the sudden urgency of emails marked confidential, in the way board members whispered when he entered a room. Then came the call. "Jonathan," a familiar voice said coldly through the line. "You've been distracted." Jonathan stiffened. "What do you want, Marcus?" Marcus Hale, his former partner, former friend, and the man who had nearly destroyed him years ago, never called unless he wanted something. "You've delayed the merger, redirected company funds, started a charity without consulting the board," Marcus continued. "People are asking questions. I'm allowed to make philanthropic decisions." Jonathan replied evenly. Marcus laughed. "Don't insult me. This isn't philanthropy. This is emotion." Jonathan said nothing. "I did some digging," Marcus added softly. "A woman. A child." "You've gone soft, Jonathan. And softness is dangerous." Jonathan's grip tightened on the phone. "Stay away from them." "Oh, I won't," Marcus replied calmly, "unless you give me what I want." The line went dead. That night, Jonathan didn't go to Elena's apartment. He couldn't. Instead, he sat alone in his penthouse, staring at the city lights as fear crept in. Not for himself, but for them, for Lily, for Elena. He had wealth, power, influence. But Marcus Hale had something more dangerous. Nothing to lose. The next morning, Elena noticed the black car. It had been parked across the street since dawn. By noon, it hadn't moved. Her stomach twisted. When Lily asked why she couldn't go outside, Elena lied and said it was too cold. She closed the curtains, her hands trembling. That evening, Jonathan arrived unannounced. "Elena," he said urgently, "we need to talk." One look at his face told her this wasn't casual. "What's wrong?" she asked. Jonathan knelt in front of Lily. "Sweetheart, can you play in your room for a minute?" Lily hesitated. "Are you mad?" Jonathan smiled softly. "Never." When Lily left, Jonathan turned serious. "Someone from my past knows about you," he said. "He's dangerous." Elena's blood ran cold. "What does he want?" "Control," Jonathan answered. "And leverage." Her voice shook. "Then we can't stay near you." Jonathan's heart sank. "I'll leave," Elena continued. "Tonight if we have to. Lily and we've survived worse." Jonathan reached for her hands. "I won't let him hurt you." Elena pulled back gently. "You already are, by staying." The words cut deeper than she intended. That night, Elena packed. Lily sat on the bed, clutching her rabbit. "Are we leaving, Jonathan?" Elena forced a smile. "Just for a little while." Lily shook her head. "He's sad when we're gone." Elena froze. "How do you know?" she whispered. Lily's eyes were serious. "Because he looks like me when I'm scared." Tears spilled down Elena's face. Jonathan arrived too late. The apartment was empty. A note sat on the table. "You gave us joy when we needed it most. Now let me protect my daughter." "Goodbye." Jonathan crumpled into a chair. He had spent years believing loneliness was safer than love. Now love had left and taken the light with it. Across town, Marcus Hale smiled as he watched security footage. "Perfect," he murmured. "Now he'll break." But Marcus underestimated one thing. Jonathan Reed didn't break. He fought. Jonathan pulled every resource he had. Lawyers, investigators, security teams. He exposed Marcus's illegal dealings, froze assets, and triggered investigations that had been waiting years for proof. Marcus retaliated, but the truth was stronger. Within days, Marcus Hale was arrested. The threat was over, but the damage remained. Jonathan stood alone again, victorious, wealthy, empty, until his phone rang. "Elena," Jonathan whispered when he saw the name. Her voice trembled. "I saw the news." "I'm so sorry," he said. "I never wanted this." There was a pause. "Lily wants to talk to you." "Jonathan," Lily said brightly. "Mommy cries at night." Jonathan closed his eyes. "Can we come home now?" "Home, yes," Jonathan said. "Please." The penthouse lights were on when Elena and Lily arrived. Jonathan stood by the door, hands clenched, heart pounding in a way no business negotiation had ever made it pound before. When he saw them step out of the elevator, Lily clutching her rabbit, Elena's eyes tired but hopeful, something inside him finally gave way. He didn't speak. He knelt and opened his arms. Lily ran into them without hesitation. "I missed you," she said into his shoulder. Jonathan held her tightly, tears streaming freely now. "I missed you too." Elena watched, her hand over her mouth. Jonathan looked up at her, voice breaking. "I should have protected you sooner." Elena shook her head. "You did. You fought." They stepped inside, and the penthouse no longer felt like a museum. It felt alive. Days turned into weeks. Life didn't suddenly become perfect, but it became real. Jonathan stepped back from work, delegating more than ever before. Headlines speculated about his transformation. The once company LD CEO now funded schools, children's clinics, teacher programs, quietly, without fanfare. The town noticed, not because of the money, but because Jonathan showed up. He attended Lily's school events, helped her with homework, learned how to braid hair terribly but enthusiastically. One evening, Lily looked up at him during dinner. "Jonathan?" she asked. "Yes, sweetheart." "Are you my dad?" The room went silent. Elena's breath caught. Jonathan knelt to Lily's level. "I'm not the one who made you," he said gently. "But if you want, I can be the one who stays." Lily smiled. "That's better," Elena cried. Months later, Jonathan took Elena back to the penthouse balcony, the same place he'd once stood alone, convinced joy was gone forever. "I've been thinking," he said softly, "about fear, about love." Elena listened quietly. "I was afraid joy would disappear again," Jonathan continued. "But I've learned something. Joy doesn't vanish. It multiplies when you share it." He took her hands. "Stay. Not because you need me, because we choose each other." Elena nodded through tears. "I already have. The wedding was small, no press, no headlines, just warmth." Lily walked between them, scattering flower petals and giggling uncontrollably. Jonathan Reed, once the loneliest man in the city, stood smiling, holding the hands of the woman he loved and the child who taught him how to feel again. Years later, when people asked Jonathan what changed his life, he didn't mention money, power, or success. He told them about a cold night, a knock on a door, and a little girl who reminded him that joy never leaves. It just waits for someone brave enough to open the door.